welcome to the Terrell and Lola Show with the Business Talk Library. And today we're going to be talking about another great topic now. We're going back to an interview that I did with a young man that was starting a business. And I mean, it's phenomenal what they were doing because it went from 0 to 37,000 followers on what he's doing with his business. And, you know, at just 8 months later, he's already over 70,000 followers for what he's doing. He's done probably 15 speaking engagements, a couple of TED Talks. All this happened during COVID. And I wanted to talk about something that he's doing in his business and how it relates to business owners in general and what we can learn from it. So, but before we jump into that, I do want to introduce, because this is the Terrell and Lola Show. I am Terrell Turner, and this is my beautiful wife.
Hello, I'm Lola Turner. So excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about this topic, and let's jump right into it.
Absolutely. And just to give you, if you're new to the show, like I said, our background is accounting and finance. We are, we have investments in real estate, investments in other businesses. We also run our own business. We're also in the business of CFO services. So we help other businesses figure out how to run the financial side of their business. So business is what we do, is what we live and we breathe. And like I say, and the way this show works is Lola and I are going to have a conversation, and we're just going to let you guys listen in on the conversation and hear some of the things that we would actually say to some of our clients, some of the advice that we've given them, and we'll just sort through it. So, like I said, today we're talking about, and let me pull up the thumbnail for that interview so you can see it. So the interview was with Jonathan, and Jonathan Javier had a career working with companies like Cisco, with Google, with Snapchat, and working out in, I guess you say, Silicon Valley, working with those major companies. But one of the things that he figured out was there was a lot of people having trouble trying to get into those type of companies. So one of the things that he and another one of his friends that worked at Google did is they figured out how to start a business outside of what they were doing full time, is helping people that went to, you say, those schools that aren't, like said, your main top schools, like your Harvards, your Yales, people who didn't go to those schools, but helping those people connect with these companies so that they can get their foot in the door and land these great jobs. Because that was the experience for him and his co-founder, is they went to, you say, mid-tier schools. They weren't the top school, they weren't the Ivy Leagues, but they still wanted to work for these big companies. And so what they started doing is helping other people navigate kind of that career path. And so they actually started, hosting events, and they started getting invited by companies like Google, companies like Apple, companies like Snapchat and Cisco and Facebook. Even with some of the, bigger industrial companies like, your Walmarts and companies like that, started inviting them in to actually speak and to do workshops and to do trainings to helping their HR teams figure that out. Because for a business owner, it was a huge savings for what they were teaching people to do. And so I thought that was amazing. So Lola, when you watched that interview, some of the feedback, what did you get from it?
I thought it was a really good interview. I think just because Jonathan really and his team at One Salting really found a way to find the unique, I guess, a niche within the career consulting piece, which a lot of people might just think, when it comes to, when it comes to hiring and finding talent, it's just, hey, you go, you apply for a job, you do the interview, you get the job. And what a lot of people I don't think realize is there's a lot that goes into that. So, just really thinking about from the benefit of someone who's actually trying to find a career, this is a good way for you to network and create a brand for yourself and really find, I guess, people that are genuinely interested in helping you further your career and get you into those spaces that, you felt like, man, going to like a community college or going to, a school that wasn't Harvard or Yale, you still have access to these top companies in the US and around the world. But then I think also the second part of it is just thinking about like the point that you made is when it comes to business owners, is really this is a great place where you can go, where you don't have to, you might not necessarily need to do the traditional recruiting. Because, you know, when I was in college, how people got recruited to these top colleges was, you know, they would have like, or not top colleges, to top companies, is you would have career fairs, right? You would go and you would meet these representatives from other companies, and, you know, you were a junior or a senior, and you would go, you would kind of talk to them, you'd give them your resume, you would do the little spiel, where this is really a good opportunity for you to, one, even figure out how to pitch yourself, right? Through Consulting is really figuring out how do you stand out, how do you develop your brand. And I think that's what they've done really well, is helping people that are coming out of college really solidify their brand and stand out. And then I think secondly, as a business owner, if I'm really trying to look for the best talent and I'm already looking for someone who is coming in, they have the, you know, the business acumen, which is a degree, but then they also have the ability to kind of pitch and tell me why I should hire them over the other person. I think it's a really good collaboration to establish. And I think that Consulting really created a niche in that space because, you know, like I said, the traditional, you know, recruiting, you can save money as a business instead of having to go and set up and stay in a hotel and bring people or whatever, to where sometimes you might go and you might not even get the right talent. This allows you to just focus on not just, you know, one school, but you can recruit across the US, which I think is pretty awesome.
Gotcha. Now, I want to take a step back. I mean, when I'm thinking about, my own experience with college and, went to college, got a degree, and I think about the recruiting efforts. Like
Mm-hmm.
I came out of school back in what, 2007.
Oh,
And when I came out of school, like I said, LinkedIn was just actually, you know what? Facebook was just starting to get going back in 2000. Well, actually, in 2005, Facebook was really still with the Ivy League schools, in which I didn't go to Ivy League school. So I wasn't on it until maybe like my senior year. But by that point, it's just like, it was so new that people weren't using it for recruiting or anything like
mm-hmm,
that. So
mm-hmm.
when it came down to getting a job, which, for a lot of people I went to school with, a lot of people graduated and could not find a job in their field. I
Mm.
mean, it really came down to, it really was who you knew. Because
Was
there
that
was a friend.
around the crisis, like 2008?
It was before the crisis. So it was
Okay.
before the crisis. So the crisis kind of hit, latter part of 2008. So 2007, people were, it's kind of like, think about it like this. I mean, it was like, with COVID, how in December, January, everybody was still good. Everybody was
Yeah.
still living life. But
Yeah.
then, like, within a matter of months, COVID just shut things down. So,
Right.
2007 was still like January timeframe,
Yeah.
it was like pre-COVID life. So,
Mm.
no, people just thought, hey, the market's going to keep going up. People didn't really see the bubble bursting. It wasn't until like, 2008 is when the bubble really kind of burst.
Okay.
Um, Actually, 2009 was more so when the bubble burst. So 2007 was still a good time. I mean, but it's just that people struggled. And I think a lot of the reasons why people struggled is it really came down to who you knew
Mm.
was, or who knew you
Yeah.
was how you got a job the old school way.
Right.
So
Right.
how was your experience?
Mine was a little bit different. I was fortunate because I don't know if it's just the overachieverness in the Nigerian culture where, you know, you got to have your whole life planned out before you graduate. But I think for me, really, I was very fortunate because I actually got my job through a co op program. So basically, for those who might not be familiar with it, a co op program gives you the opportunity to intern while you're going through school. So it's typically with a company, like you'll have a few companies that'll sign up for your accounting and finance program, and they'll actually hire interns that they can kind of develop through the, I guess, while you're in school. Because at the end of the day, they're hoping, hey, I'm investing in you while you're, while you're in college, and then eventually, you could potentially get a full-time position. So I was actually pretty fortunate. I got offered a full-time position. I started working as a co-op, I think it was around my junior year. So again, it was a pretty good company, Navistar, which is where I met Terrell. Hey, but it was a pretty good company. We started working there as interns, me and a few other people from the accounting and finance program. And you had to apply and you had to, get in. And so we got hired and I was able to work there junior and senior year. And then, when they decided to move to Chicago, I got offered a full-time position. But not a lot of people, have that option. And even when I think about just the college recruiting process, I remember going to multiple career fairs, where you would do that whole thing. You'd come dressed up in your little nice suit, you would shake hands and you'd be like, hey, I'm Lola, and then the thing is, to be honest, they have a stack of resumes by the time they're done. And so really you had to just find a way to distinguish yourself. Like you had to make one heck of an impression on them for them to honestly even remember who you were. Like I don't remember getting a phone call, and my grades were pretty good. I don't remember ever getting a phone call from any of those career fairs where like, hey, we saw you and we want to hire you. Like, I think like you said, it really came down to who I knew. And I got into the co-op program because honestly, I got in because I was one of the first people to apply. Like, I think I applied my sophomore year. And so by that time, I was very fortunate to be one of the people that were accepted into the program right as I was going into my junior year. So ultimately, I think the great thing about social media and the great thing about LinkedIn, which I don't think a lot of people even really understand now, is you can really develop that brand and you can develop it on such a massive scale. You have more options. You don't have to be restricted based on your location. You can reach out to people in California. You can reach out to people basically all over the world, depending on where you want to go, and develop those relationships. And then the great thing about social media now is like people actually know you. Like you're not just a resume underneath a stack of someone's desk. And I really felt like that was how the recruiting process worked, for people coming into the corporate world from college. And so for me, I was just very fortunate. So I didn't have to go through that process. Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's, as I think about myself and when I worked for Fortune 500 companies, when I was working for General Electric, and we used to go to career fairs and you'd be there and it's like you would take resumes from students, or, you give them your business card, they'd email you their resume. And I mean, there's only so much of a impression you can make in that matter of few seconds.
I'm curious, were there any things that people did that made you say wow, I would like to, I would definitely want to bring this person into, the FLD program, or I definitely want to recommend this person for, some of the leadership programs?
It really came down to, for people that either they were involved in an organization that I may have been involved in when I was in school. So maybe that stood out in my mind, because I mean, if you think about it, like you said, you're meeting 120 students are coming through. You're going to shake hands with every single one of them. Every single one of them is going to follow the same script that, their counselors told them.
Exactly. In the career
handshake. My name is, my major is, I'm looking for such and such. It's just like, you ask yourself, like, what stands out about this person? And I think that when if I were back in school and I were going to school and I was graduating, I know for sure I would be killing the job market game, even during COVID. Because one of the biggest challenges that I saw, and that even that I had, like when I was going through school, one of the things that I did is, I knew I wasn't going to be able to get a job right. Well, I didn't think I was going to get a job right out of undergrad. So I knew I had to go to, graduate school. And one of my professors told me, he said, hey, I'm gonna be honest with you. At the undergraduate school, you do great work here, but no one really knows this school. So you're gonna have to either go to graduate school if you want to make it into one of the top firms. So I knew that I had to go to graduate school, and so there wasn't like a ton of people being recruited from my undergrad to go to grad school. So what I did is I called the dean of one of the largest schools in South Carolina. And I set up a meeting and I met him over the Christmas break. I showed up in his office. I met him. Him and I sat down. We spent maybe about 2 to 3 hours together, just dean and I, just talking about their program, what they're doing. I told him about what I was doing. And then he told me that they were going to have an open house because they were trying to recruit more students. So that fall, what I did is I called the dean and said, hey, I got 6 other students from my school that are going to come to the event. So I found 6 other students in the accounting program and told them, like, hey, we can carpool together. I already talked to our professors. They'll give us an excuse to not come to class that day. So the 6 of us went up there. And so that dean remembered me. At
Oh,
that point,
wow.
he remembered who I was. And
Yeah.
it just took that much hustle to be able to do that because, you had to go so far above and beyond. Now,
Mhm.
fast forwarding with technology, I mean, when it comes down to LinkedIn, what I probably could have, I mean, would do with LinkedIn
If
is
you had
I
LinkedIn.
would, if I would have created videos to do the same thing I did with that one dean, I would have done that same thing with like 15 other deans and just
Mhm.
being able to connect with them on LinkedIn because back then, I had to get in the car to drive there. I had to make sure he had time. Whereas if I could have just used LinkedIn, I probably could have done that much faster and I could have done it with a whole lot more schools to be able to, like I said, get my foot in the door.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the dean told me is like, he said, I'll be honest with you, even kid, because it was the University of South Carolina is the school that I was that he was the dean in, and he told me, he said, there are students at this school who aren't even setting up meetings with him to meet with him, but you
Yeah.
came from another school that's like an hour or 2 hours away to set up a meeting to come down and sit down with me. He was like, this made me remember you because you're doing something that other people aren't doing. And
Yep.
that's what I
Yep.
like about what they're doing at Juan Consulting is helping people that came from schools that fly under the radar, helping
Mhm.
them figure out like, hey, how do you make your impression
Yep.
using LinkedIn?
Yep. No, agreed. Agreed. I think that's a really good point. And I think that's actually a great segue into the business side of things as well, because I think about that even like with business owners. Like a lot of people just want to fly under the radar. Like, and this is something that I had to learn also just in as we started our businesses, is I think a lot of times you think like even with the Spanish or charlando negocios, it's just like, well, I have great content or I have a great business and people are just gonna find me. Like wrong. Wrong. People are not just going to find you. Like you need to get out there and talk to people about your business. And the more conversations you have, the more you network, the more you develop your brand, the more people know you, the more memorable you are, and the more people trust you. Like the more people like you, the more people know you, the more people trust you. Like, and I think that just comes back to really connecting the dots on just not just leveraging LinkedIn, but just the importance of developing those relationships. Because even when I think about, even when I think about like if I compare this to football, and now I can actually use this because I actually understand the terminology. So just bear with me. If I get something wrong, just bear with me. I'm not American, um, at least by nationality. But when I think about
Well,
football,
I
I
don't
can
know. You are. You've been
I am. I'm a
nationalized.
citizen. Okay, I am a citizen. Okay, I'm not American by birth. I'll put it that way, right? So I didn't go to high school. I went to like my senior year of high school here, so I'm not really familiar with the football game. Anyways, all that to say, like even when we were watching like some of the the games or whatever over the last couple of weeks or months, like one of the things I think about and one of the things that we mentioned is how a lot of schools like people have great schools like Clemson or other schools that people just know and know that they have a great football team and everyone wants to play for that team, right? Like everyone wants to work for Microsoft, everyone wants to work for Google, everyone wants to work for Zillow, whatever those San Francisco, what do they call that place, companies?
Silicon Valley.
Thank you. The Silicon Valley companies, like everyone wants to work there. Now, imagine you are a mid sized or small business that's trying to recruit just the equivalent talent, right? Like, how do you, as a business owner, distinguish yourself and make it so that, hey, people want to work where you are? Like, how do you make it easy for people to find you? Because at the end of the day, like, I think a lot of times people focus on, man, finding the right job. But a lot of times it's also the aspect of finding the right employee because I don't want to just have a lot of people that apply for my job and they all suck. Like it's a waste of time. Because looking at these resumes and being like, well, I guess this is what I have to settle for. Like there's been a few times where I've hired people, even in my job, where I'm just like, or in the process of searching for people, and I'm just like, nah, this isn't good. Like I need the best talent. But the reality is people that truly know their value and their worth and know what they have to offer are applying for companies that are popular. But the reality is, even how do you as employer attract the right talent to your business? Because at the end of the day, it's going to save you money. Like we've talked about this, Terrell, right? How it's going to save you money in the long run when you hire the right talent ahead of time and you hire them early on in the process versus hiring a bad employee. And then, you got to deal with all the drama, the hot mess of work, like, and then you got to fire them. And it's bad, like, especially because, they're like, man, this is the only job I ever had. And I'm like, well, you should have performed well. that's besides the point. But I'm just saying all this to say, like, I think not just from a career standpoint, but also as a business owner, one of the things you have to think about is like making sure you're hiring the right people. You know, we've been very fortunate that the people that we've worked with have been great, but it's just not a good experience when you have to deal with just having a horrible employee. Like, no one wants to do that, right? And so I think for me, that's probably the biggest takeaway.
Yeah. So, I think that is a very good point, because when you think about, when it comes to finding, the right employees, it's not that a person is bad. It's just that they're not the right fit for what you're trying to do.
That's a good point.
And and as a business owner, your job is, how do I find the person who's the best fit? And I think about, we did an interview with Christia, the founder of, Thank God It's Natural. Amazing natural hair care product line. I mean, sold all in box office stores all around the US. And one of the things she talked about was, what I'm really looking for is A, talent. And, a B, it might work, but a C, nah, we can't even do it.
That's exactly how she said it. That's exactly, I like you, we're cool, but you're not going to last. And that's just the reality. Yep.
Yeah, and that's the thing about, what they were talking about at One Salting. I mean, and I'll give you a little hint. I mean, one of the things they mentioned about is, leveraging LinkedIn to demonstrate what you can do as a candidate. So one of the things that I've challenged business owners to do is, instead of just putting out a job posting of help wanted or whatever, I'm like, that's kind of arrogant for you to think that, hey, your job is so good that the right people are just going to find it. Like, maybe put a little bit of effort into it. Maybe create a video or create some type of graphic about, hey, what does a good person for this role look like? Because sometimes if you just put out there help wanted, you might get any and everything. But if you know that there are certain skills that you need, there are certain skills that are specific to people who are successful in your organization, like, that's what you need to put out there. And you can utilize social media or LinkedIn, whether it's creating a video or whether it's talking about your company, like, hey, these are the type of people who succeed and do well at this company. And then that way, the people who are applying know these are the type of skills that I need to have, because again, it is a very, I mean, I tell some people it's like this, some people, when I apply for jobs, or even now in my own business, where some people say, as a CFO, like, my services are a little expensive. And I tell them, it's like, you might think that. And, if that's true, that means my company, I'm not the right fit for your company. And to be honest with you, you're not the right client for my business. Because I'm like, my price is what it is, because I know the value that I'm going to deliver. If you can't afford to pay it, then that just means we're not a good fit. But also, I tell them too is, what, if you think my price is expensive, wait until you hire the wrong person and have to fire them. And then you got to come back and hire me anyway. So
yeah, no, that's the truth. That reminds me, I think it was Lori that made that point when she talked about, like, was it the tax example? I'm trying to remember what interview that was, but where she talked about, she basically made the comment about, you don't want to pay whatever dollars to get your taxes done, but then you go pay someone that messes it up and you're like, I don't understand why this is so expensive. It's like, it's expensive because I got the education. It's expensive because, I went to school for 20 years to be able to do your taxes in 1 hour, but you're like, it only takes me 1 hour. Like, why do I need to pay X, Y, Z? And it's just like, no, respect the value, right? And that's a valid point. It's just like, there's so much cost associated with people doing the wrong things. It's just like, just do the right thing once. And I can speak from experience on cost avoidance, okay? I can speak from experience with some of our properties where I'm like, I don't want to pay this. Like, I think this just happened a few months ago where I was like, someone came to check it out. They were like, oh, you need to get this repaired. I'm like, I don't really want to spend $300. Well, it ended up costing me $800 to fix it eventually. So it's like, probably should just spend the $300 in the first place. So I really just think,
that was not a happy conversation in
no,
our house.
It was not. If I had just spent, the $300 ahead of time, we wouldn't be in that problem. But again, it's a tough lesson to learn, but I think, you learn it enough times to make sure, hey, like, you're keeping pay the right thing and invest the time, right? And I think even like you said, like going back to the conversation with about one salting and the whole cost of hiring is just make the investment to get the best talent, make the investment to hire the best talent. And a lot of times it's costing you less money than it would have cost you if you went the traditional route. On
Yeah.
the side of someone that, owns is in career or is in the career path or whatever, is just invest the time to make yourself stand out and develop your brand. A lot of times people are like, I don't know, I don't want to put myself out there. I'm just going to post the job, or I'm just going to apply and just see where it comes out. It's like, no, there's something unique about you. There's a value that you have to offer. And hey, rejection doesn't mean you're not a good person. It just means you might not be a good fit for that job. So, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in conclusion, like I said, what we try to do here is share some of the insight and some of the conversations that we've had with clients. And so if you're a business owner, definitely this show is perfect for you, because we simplify some of the complicated things that a lot of business owners face. Because no matter where you are in your stage of business, at some point your business will grow to where you have to hire and bring on help. So this will be a very relevant topic for you. Now, if there are other people that that could, benefit from this topic, definitely tell them to tune in to RETV every Tuesday at 6 p.m. because the Business Talk Library will be sharing inside knowledge on all of the businesses that we've been talking to, because we've interviewed over 230 CEOs and executives, and we're sharing a lot of the stuff that they share with us. We'll be sharing it with you guys, plus our own experiences. So thanks for watching. Until next time.
Thank you for tuning into the Business Talk Library, aired on RETV. If you'd like to see more of the Business Talk Library, be sure to watch us every week on Tuesday nights at 6 p.m.